Leave. Only family is allowed here. My father said that to me on a gravel path lined with white peonies, my carry-on still in my hand, 18 hours of travel still in my bones, a string quartet playing something by Pachelbel through the doors of a venue I was not permitted to enter. I held up the invitation. Foil-pressed, crane stationery, my full name printed inside. And he looked at it and said, "That was a mistake. You shouldn't have come." Behind him, through the tall glass doors, I could see my sister Paige in a white Vera Wang gown, laughing with a bridesmaid. My mother Donna stood near the entrance in lavender, watching through the window. She did not come outside. She did not wave. 3 days later, she called me about a bill. $38,000, my name on the contract, for a wedding I had been physically removed from. What I said next made her go completely silent. My name is Nadia. I'm 34 years old. I work in compliance consulting out of London, which means I read contracts for a living, looking for what doesn't belong. I have been training for exactly this moment since I was 18 and didn't know it. I want to tell you what compliance work actually teaches you. Not the dry mechanics, not the audit trails and verification protocols. What it teaches you is this. The most important thing on any document is the signature line. Because the signature is where a person stakes their name. Where they say, I reviewed this, I understood this, I agreed to this. A signature is consent made legible. A forged signature is not just fraud. It is the theft of a person's word. Someone deciding that your name, your agreement, your consent belongs to them, that they can take it, sign it, use it, and hand you the consequences. My father signed my name on a $38,000 contract without telling me, without asking, without giving me any chance to say yes or no. He decided that my name was his to use, that I was his to use. That was not new information about my father. It was just the most legible version of something he had always believed. But before I tell you about the forged signature, the venue investigation, and the Sunday brunch where I placed a manila folder on a dining room table and let 15 people recalculate everything they thought they knew, I need to take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand what kind of family produces a story like this one, the kind that smiles for the camera and locks you out of the frame. If you're here right now, thank you. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Drop it in the comments. I read everyone. Growing up in the Calloway household, there were two versions of childhood happening under one roof. There was Paige's version, the one with homecoming dresses and a used Honda Civic waiting in the driveway on her 16th birthday, paid for by a father who called her my little star without a trace of irony. And there was mine, the version where I filled out my own college applications at the public library because nobody reminded me the deadlines were coming. My father, Gerald, ran a building supply store on the south side of Charlotte. He talked about it like it was an empire. In reality, it was a cinder-block building with a leaking roof and 3 part-time employees who never stayed longer than a season. My mother, Donna, kept the house and kept the peace, which mostly meant agreeing with whatever Gerald said and redirecting any tension toward the path of least resistance. That path was usually me. Paige was 5 years younger, effortlessly charming, and genuinely believed the world arranged itself around her because she deserved it. I don't say that with bitterness. I say it because it's the operating principle that everything else grew from. I left at 18 on a partial scholarship, a savings account built from tutoring fees, and no one to drive me to campus. 7 years ago, I took a position with a consulting firm in London. Compliance analysis, the kind of work where you read documents line by line, looking for what doesn't fit. I was good at it. I'd been training for it my whole life without knowing. I bought a 1-bedroom flat in Canary Wharf. Small, clean, mine. Every square foot paid for with money I earned. I didn't leave home. Home left me first. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday in late September. Heavy cream envelope, foil-pressed return address, Crane and Company stationery. The weight of it alone said, someone spent real money on this. Inside, a formal invitation to the wedding of Paige Calloway and Marcus Webb, to be held at the Whitmore Estate in Charlotte, December 14th. Black tie optional. I looked up the Whitmore Estate. A restored venue with crystal chandeliers, manicured boxwood gardens, and a starting price of $25,000. For a family whose store couldn't afford a new AC unit, this was a significant reach. What stopped me from declining was the note tucked inside. Paige's handwriting, loopy and familiar on a separate card. It wouldn't be complete without you. Please come. P. 7 years. In 7 years, my parents had called me exactly when they needed something. A cosign question, an opinion on a medical bill. Paige called on birthdays sometimes. Christmas was a group text. And now this, an invitation and a handwritten note that sounded almost like it meant something. I booked the flight that weekend. London Heathrow to Charlotte Douglas economy, $1,400 round trip. I told myself I wasn't going because I'd forgiven anything. I told myself I wanted to see if they'd changed. There's a difference between forgiveness and curiosity. I was holding the second one with both hands. My closest friend Claire texted when I told her, "You're actually going?" Bold move. I should have listened to her tone. I landed on a Friday evening in December. The terminal smelled like chain coffee and winter humidity. I picked up a rental car and drove to the Hilton Garden Inn near the University District. I had not stayed at my parents' house on visits for years. Nobody questioned it anymore. From the hotel room, I called Paige. It rang 5 times. "Hey," she said, too brightly. "You made it. Just be at the venue by 2. Ceremony at 3. Her voice had that clipped quality. Someone in a room with other people who doesn't want to say much. I've got to go. Rehearsal stuff. She hung up before I could say anything else. I called my mother next. Donna picked up on the second ring, and the first thing she said landed like a stone dropped in still water. "Oh, you actually came?" I thought, well, the flight was so long. I figured you might change your mind. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed in my coat, my suitcase still upright by the door, and let that sentence settle. She didn't say she was glad. She didn't say she'd see me tomorrow. She said she thought I wouldn't show up. I told her I'd be at the venue by 2. Ended the call. Something was off. I could feel it the way you feel a change in cabin pressure. Nothing visible, just a shift that makes your ears ring. I didn't sleep well that night. Saturday, December 14th. I wore a fitted navy dress I had bought on Regent Street specifically for the occasion. Low heels, pearl studs, nothing showy. The Whitmore estate sat at the end of a long gravel drive lined with bare magnolias strung in white lights. Through the tall front windows, chandeliers, the flicker of candlelight, a string quartet warming up. My father was standing outside. Not inside greeting guests. Not at the front with the wedding party. Standing on the gravel in a charcoal vest I'd never seen before, next to a leased Cadillac Escalade that still had the dealer plate attached. He saw me coming and stepped forward. "Nadia, you need to leave." I stopped. "Excuse me?" "Only family is allowed. You weren't invited." I held up the invitation. The actual foil-pressed Crane and Company invitation with my name inside. "That was a mistake. You shouldn't have come." I looked past his shoulder. Through the glass doors, Paige laughed at something a bridesmaid said, her dress catching the light. My mother stood near the entrance watching through the window. She did not come outside. "Don't make a scene," Gerald said. "Walk away." I did not beg. I did not cry. Not in front of him. I turned around, pulled my case back across the gravel, and walked to the rental car. I didn't cry until the doors were locked and the engine was running. And even then, I didn't cry for the wedding. I cried because I had let myself hope. Back at the Hilton, I sat on the bed in the same navy dress, shoes still on, and stared at the muted television for what might have been an hour. I called Claire at 8. "They did what?" Her voice came through sharp enough to cut glass. I told her everything. Gerald on the gravel. Donna watching through the window. Paige laughing inside while I stood holding an invitation nobody honored. "I want to rebook my flight," I said. "I'm going home." "Don't." Claire's voice was steady. "Not yet. Listen to me. They sent you an invitation. Paige wrote you a personal note. You flew 18 hours and they turned you away at the door. People don't do that unless they need something from you, or unless they're hiding something. I heard her set down a mug. Give it a few days, she said. If nothing happens, fly home Sunday. But something's going to happen. I can feel it. I didn't believe her. I pulled up the airline app, scrolled through available seats for the morning. My finger hovered over confirm. I didn't click it. Maybe some part of me could feel it too. 3 days passed. Nobody called. I worked remote from the desk by the window, reviewing audit files for a Zurich client who didn't care that my personal life was falling apart. That was the comfort of compliance work. Contracts don't have feelings. They just say what they say. On Monday, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Paige's feed had exploded. The Whitmore estate in golden hour light. Paige and Marcus under an arch of white roses. The cake, 5 tiers. Buttercream, probably $2,000 on its own. 47 photos. Not one of me. Not one mention. Then I saw my mother's post. Donna had uploaded a collage. Paige as a baby. Paige at prom. Paige with Gerald at the altar. And at the bottom, a photograph of me and Paige as children, maybe 8 and 3 years old, sitting on the porch in matching sundresses. The caption, "So proud of both my girls." I stared at the word both until it stopped making sense. She posted both my girls for the cousins and old neighbors who followed her. For the narrative. She couldn't very well explain why one of her girls wasn't in any of the wedding photos, so she reached a decade back into the archive for proof of inclusion that no longer existed. Meanwhile, Paige had posted a honeymoon countdown. Bali, the Four Seasons Resort, location tagged. I closed the app, shut the laptop, and ate vending machine crackers for dinner. Some performances you can watch, others you can only survive. Tuesday morning, 9:15. My mother's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer. But the compliance analyst in me has a rule. You don't dodge a call when you don't know what the other side is holding. Donna's voice when she spoke had been stripped of all warmth. No hello, no how are you. We need to discuss the bill. What bill? The venue, the Whitmore estate. The total is $38,000. She paused, thin as a wire. How will you be paying? I sat up straighter. Mom, what are you talking about? I didn't hire a venue. You signed the contract. You're the guarantor. Your name is on the agreement. The room tilted. I never signed a single document for that wedding. I was not contacted. I was not consulted. I had not even been told a contract existed. Shuffling on the other end. Then Gerald's voice, hard and close. He'd taken the phone. Don't play dumb, Nadia. Your name is on that contract. You're the guarantor. You owe this family. I owe this family for a wedding you kicked me out of? We'll talk about that later. Right now you need to handle the bill. Dad, I did not sign anything. Then who did? A ghost? I pressed my palm flat against the desk. My heart was hammering, but my voice stayed level. You keep saying contract in my signature. I'm telling you, I have never signed a guarantor agreement for the Whitmore estate or for anyone else connected to this wedding. He hung up. I sat in that hotel room and let the words loop. Contract. Your signature. Guarantor. I knew exactly what those words meant. I read contracts for a living. I knew what a forged signature meant under the law. And I knew what questions to ask next. That was the moment I stopped being hurt and started paying attention. If this is landing somewhere real, if you've ever had to stay quiet to protect yourself when every part of you wanted to speak, subscribe and leave me a comment. I read everyone. It means more than I can explain. I called the Whitmore estate at 10:30 that same morning. A woman named Karen Mitchell picked up. Professional, measured, the kind of voice that has managed hundreds of anxious families and doesn't flinch. I explained that my name appeared on a guarantor agreement for the Callaway Webb wedding and that I had not signed it. I requested a copy of the document. The silence that followed told me something. The kind of silence that means someone just stopped typing. Miss Callaway, can you repeat that? I did not sign a guarantor agreement for this wedding. I was not asked and I was not present. I'd like to request a copy of the document through your formal channel. More silence, then carefully, if what you're saying is accurate, this would be a serious matter for our legal department. I understand. I can provide government-issued identification to verify my identity. She explained the process. Submit a written request, attach a copy of my passport, and the legal team would email a scanned copy within 48 hours. I thanked her, hung up, and drafted the request letter in 12 minutes. Attached a scan of my passport photo page. Sent it certified. Then I called Claire. There's a contract with my name on it. And I never signed it. 3 seconds of silence. Okay, Claire said. Now we work. The calls from the extended family started Wednesday. My aunt went first, warm but firm, the tone of a woman who'd rehearsed her speech. Nadia, honey, your mother is beside herself. She says you promised to cover the venue and now you're backing out. I know things are complicated, but think about your parents' health. I didn't promise anything. But I recognized the script. Donna had already seeded the story. My uncle followed with an email, 4 paragraphs, single-spaced subject line. Family first. The argument, family isn't about contracts, it's about love. Don't let money destroy us. It read like a eulogy for a relationship he'd never maintained with me. My cousin Becca sent a text. Just pay it. It's easier for everyone. 22 members of the extended Calloway family, almost all of them receiving the same version of events, that I had made a commitment, that I was breaking it, that I was selfish and cold and choosing money over blood. I screenshotted every message, every voicemail, every email. Compliance training teaches you one thing above everything else. Document everything, especially when the narrative being told isn't yours. Then a text from a number I almost didn't recognize. My cousin Daniel, Aunt Caroline's son, 26, quiet, the one in the family who watched while everyone else performed. Something feels off. Mom keeps saying you promised, but I don't think that's the whole story. Want to talk? I typed, not yet, but keep your eyes open. He replied with a thumbs up. One person out of 22. One person who thought to ask. I saved the thread and closed my phone. Then Paige called. Thursday afternoon. Athena, just pay the bill. You make 6 figures. 38,000 is barely a month's salary for you. You kicked me out of your wedding, Paige, and now you want me to pay for it. That was Dad's decision. I didn't want to. But you didn't stop him either. She had no answer for that. Look, she said. Dad handled the contract months ago. It's done. Just write the check and we can move on like adults. I never signed anything. Whatever. Dad handled it. How? How did he handle it, Paige? I don't know the details. I just know your name is on the form. Just write the check and stop being dramatic. You can afford it. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the ceiling. The hotel's water stain. The shape of it, like a country nobody visits. Paige. I kept my voice level. Can you say one honest thing to me? Did you know Dad put my name on that contract? The silence lasted 5 seconds. When you're counting, 5 seconds is a canyon. It doesn't matter, she said. It matters to me. You left this family, Nadia. You moved to London and disappeared. You don't get to come back and play victim. I ended the call. Set the phone face down on the desk. My hands were steady. Not because I was calm, because something had shifted. She knew. She had known the whole time. And she didn't care. The contract copy was on its way. They were writing the story of who I was. They just didn't know I could read. Friday morning. The email arrived from the Whitmore Estate Legal Department with a single PDF attachment. 11 pages, clean, formal, organized. Gerald had called at 7:15. His voice had the practiced steadiness of a man gripping the wheel on an icy road. I talked to someone with legal experience, he said. He confirmed that a guarantor contract is binding. You have 30 days to pay or the venue will pursue legal action. Did your contact also mention what happens if the guarantor's signature was forged? Dead air. Nobody forged anything. You keep using that word. Because it means a felony in this state, Dad. That's what it means. Another pause. Breathing. Shallow and deliberate. You want to play lawyer? Fine. But a judge will see your name in black and white. I'll have the contract in my hands today. We'll let the handwriting do the talking. You're unbelievable. After everything He hung up. No bluster this time. No, you should be grateful. No, you're ungrateful. Just a click and dead air. What I noticed, when I said the word forged, he went silent before he said a single word. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I opened the PDF. Page 1. Venue details. December 14th. Callaway Web Wedding. Grand Magnolia Package. $38,000. Page 2. Payment terms. Page 3. The guarantor agreement. I, Nadia Callaway, hereby guarantee full payment of the remaining balance in the event that the primary contracting parties default. And there at the bottom, a signature. My name. In handwriting that was not mine. I stared at it. Whoever had signed it had tried to replicate my script. The long tail on the N, the way I looped the C. But the pen pressure was wrong. The slant too steep. The lowercase letters didn't connect the way mine do. It looked like someone had practiced from a sample, an old tax form, a bank document, and gotten close enough to fool a venue coordinator who had no reason to question it. Close enough to fool a stranger. Not close enough to fool me. I set the laptop next to my passport, opened to the photo page. My real signature in navy ink. Firm, clean, unmistakable. The two signatures did not match. That's not my signature, I said out loud in an empty hotel room, and I can prove it. I called Claire. She picked up on the first ring. I'm looking at it. How bad? My name. Someone else's handwriting. It's not even close, Claire. She exhaled. That's textbook forgery. Under state law, a forged guarantor agreement is void from the moment it was signed. It never legally existed. You have zero liability. Claire came to the hotel within the hour, laptop under her arm, a legal pad half covered in notes. We sat at the desk by the window with 2 coffees and the PDF between us. Here's what you do, she said. You write a formal letter to the venue's legal department. You state that you did not sign the guarantor agreement, that the signature is not yours, and you request that they initiate a verification process. You attach your passport for comparison. Then you state the facts clearly. You were not present when the document was signed, you were not informed it existed, and you did not authorize anyone to sign on your behalf. I drafted the letter in 20 minutes. She tightened 2 sentences and added a line about preserving the original for potential forensic analysis. What happens when the venue confirms the forgery? I asked. All $38,000 reverts to the actual contracting parties, your parents, your sister. And if they report it to law enforcement? Claire looked at me over her reading glasses. Forgery is a felony, but that's the venue's decision, not yours. All you're doing is telling the truth. I sent the letter at 2:14, certified. Read receipt requested. Then I sat back and looked at the ceiling. Now we wait, I said. Now we get ready for that brunch, Claire said. She smiled. I didn't, but I also didn't book the flight home. Tuesday. The venue's legal department replied. The email was short. Miss Callaway, we have received your formal claim regarding the guarantor agreement. Upon preliminary review, we are initiating a signature verification process. During the course of this investigation, all collection activity directed at you has been suspended. Claire, when I called her, they wouldn't suspend collection unless they saw a discrepancy immediately. This is real. They believe you. 2 hours later, a second email arrived from Karen Mitchell at the Whitmore estate, sent from her work address with the subject line, FYI. Miss Callaway, I've been thinking about this since your call. I was the one who processed the original guarantor paperwork. The person who dropped off the sign form was an older gentleman. He submitted the document at our front desk and signed it while standing at the counter. I remember because he seemed rushed. An older gentleman. Rushing. Signing a form at a front desk with someone else's name. Gerald had walked into that venue, picked up a pen, and written my name as though it belonged to him. As though I belonged to him. I saved both emails, printed copies at the business center, added them to the folder. Contract copy, venue investigation letter, Karen's statement, passport signature page, 4 documents, clean, organized, unambiguous. I zipped the folder into my carry-on. Sunday was 3 days away. Daniel had already texted with the details. Family brunch at Aunt Caroline's house, noon. Donna was calling it a family discussion. The stated goal was to help Nadia see reason. 15 people invited. Gerald and Donna. Paige and Marcus. Aunt Caroline and Uncle Roger. Becca, Daniel, a handful of others. Donna had organized this gathering to corner me. She'd controlled the narrative, primed the audience, arranged the seating. She thought she was building a trap. She was building my stage. Saturday night, alone in the hotel room, I almost quit. The airline app was open on my laptop. A seat on the Sunday morning flight to Heathrow. Row 34. Aisle, change fee, $260. My cursor sat on confirm like a hand on a doorknob. Claire showed up at 9 with 2 coffees and didn't knock. She used the spare keycard I'd given her. Close the laptop. I'm just looking. You're running. She set a coffee on the nightstand and sat at the foot of the bed. And running is exactly what they're counting on. Gerald is banking on the fact that you'll fly back to London, quietly pay the bill, and never make him explain himself. This isn't about making him explain himself. It's about making sure they can never sign your name again on anything. Ever. That sentence landed differently than anything else she'd said all week. One more day, she said. Just wait. I looked at the screen. Row 34A. The change fee. The departure time. One more day. I closed the laptop. After she left, I lay in the dark listening to the ice machine down the hall. At 2 a.m, my mind went somewhere I don't usually let it go. I was 14. The regional science fair. 2nd place in the state. A water filtration project built with activated charcoal. My mother had promised to come to the ceremony. She didn't. My father was supposed to drive me. He took Paige to buy soccer cleats instead. I rode the city bus home alone, trophy in a plastic bag on my lap. When I got home, I put it on the kitchen counter. By the next morning, it had been moved to the top of the refrigerator, behind a cereal box. Paige's soccer team photo was still front and center on the door. Lying in that hotel room 20 years later, I understood something I'd been avoiding. I hadn't flown 18 hours for a wedding. I'd flown 18 hours to see if they'd finally open the door. And they hadn't. The cruelest part wasn't being turned away on the gravel. It was realizing I still showed up hoping they wouldn't. At some point, I must have fallen asleep because I woke at 7 with my shoes still on and a headache behind my eyes. The coffee Claire had left was cold on the nightstand. My phone had one notification. An email from the Whitmore estate. Subject, document request, Callaway event. I sat up, opened it, read the first line. And before I could finish reading, my phone rang. Gerald, 7:15 on a Sunday morning. I set the phone face up on the bed and looked at his name on the screen. Then I answered. His voice had a different quality than the last time. Something had left it. The practiced authority was still there, but something underneath it had thinned. The specific sound of a man who has been awake since 3 a.m. and knows why. I hope you've had time to think clearly, he said. The venue has been patient, but they won't wait forever. I had the contract in my hands. I had the investigation letter. I had Karen's statement and my passport and 4 documents that contained one clean truth. All I had to do was walk into Aunt Caroline's house at noon and lay them on the table. Funny you should call right now, I said. There's nothing funny about this. I'll see you at noon, Dad. He hung up. I stood at the window with cold coffee and a gray December morning and the folder on the desk. Outside, a car pulled into the hotel lot and sat idling. A woman got out with a suitcase, the same size as mine, and disappeared through the automatic doors. Normal. Human. The ordinary world going about its morning. I ironed a white cotton blouse, paired it with a navy blazer, dark trousers, low heels. The outfit of someone who came to present facts, not feelings. I organized the folder one final time. Contract copy, venue investigation letter, Karen Mitchell's statement, passport signature page, everything legible, everything in order. I zipped the folder into my bag, picked up my keys, and drove to Aunt Caroline's house. I talked to someone with legal experience, he said. He confirmed that a guarantor contract is binding. You have 30 days to pay, or the venue will pursue legal action. Did your contact also mention what happens if the guarantor's signature was forged? Dead air. Nobody forged anything. You keep using that word like it means something. It means a felony in this state, Dad. That's what it means. Another pause. Shallow breathing. Deliberate. You want to play lawyer? Fine. But a judge will see your name in black and white. I'll have the contract in my hands today. We'll let the handwriting do the talking. You're unbelievable. After everything we... He hung up before finishing. No, you should be grateful. No ungrateful. Just a click and dead air. I noticed what he did not say. When I said the word forged, he went silent before anything else. That silence, brief, involuntary, unmistakable, told me everything I needed to know. I opened the PDF, page 1, venue details, December 14th, Callaway Webb Wedding, Grand Magnolia Package, $38,000. Page 2, payment terms. Page 3, the guarantor agreement. I, Nadia Callaway, hereby guarantee full payment of the remaining balance in the event that the primary contracting parties default. And there at the bottom, a signature. My name, in handwriting that was not mine. I stared at it for a long time. Whoever signed it had tried to replicate my script. The long tail on the N, the way I looped the C. But the pen pressure was wrong, the slant too steep. The lowercase letters didn't connect the way mine do. It looked like someone had practiced from a sample, an old tax document, a bank form, and gotten close enough to fool a venue coordinator who had no reason to question it. Close enough to fool a stranger, not close enough to fool me. I set the laptop next to my passport, open to the photo page. My real signature in navy ink. Firm, clean, unmistakable. The loops where I loop, the breaks where I break. I had been writing that name for 34 years. Nobody signs it like I do. The two signatures did not match. That's not my signature, I said out loud in an empty hotel room. And I can prove it. I called Claire. She picked up on the first ring. I'm looking at it. How bad? My name. Someone else's handwriting. It's not even close, Claire. She exhaled slowly. That's textbook forgery. Under state law, a forged guarantor agreement is void from the moment it was signed. It never legally existed. You have zero liability. Claire came to the hotel within the hour with her laptop and a legal pad half covered in notes. We sat at the desk by the window with 2 coffees and the PDF between us. Here's what you do, she said. You write a formal letter to the venue's legal department. You state that you did not sign the guarantor agreement, that the signature is not yours, and you request that they initiate a verification process. You attach your passport for comparison. Then you state the facts. You were not present when the document was signed, you were not informed it existed, and you did not authorize anyone to sign on your behalf. I drafted the letter in 20 minutes. She tightened 2 sentences and added a line about preserving the original for potential forensic analysis. What happens when the venue confirms the forgery? I asked. All $38,000 reverts to the actual contracting parties. Your parents, your sister. And if they report it to law enforcement? Claire looked at me over her reading glasses. Forgery is a felony. But that's the venue's decision, not yours. All you're doing is telling the truth. I sent the letter at 2:14. Certified. Read receipt requested. Then I sat back and looked at the ceiling. Now we wait, I said. Now we get ready for that brunch, Claire said. She smiled. I didn't. But I also didn't book the flight home. I stood at the window, coffee going cold in my hand, looking out at a December morning that was gray and completely indifferent to everything happening inside it. I ironed a white cotton blouse, paired it with a navy blazer, dark trousers, low heels. Professional, controlled. The outfit of someone who came to present facts, not feelings. I organized the folder one final time. Contract copy, venue investigation letter, Karen Mitchell's statement, passport signature page. Everything in order, everything legible. I zipped the folder into my bag. I drove to Aunt Caroline's house in the rental. A brick colonial with a wide front porch and a minivan in the driveway. 3 other cars along the curb. Gerald's pickup. Uncle Roger's Buick. A silver Honda I assumed was Paige and Marcus's. I sat in the car with the engine off. Hands on the wheel. 15 people inside. Most of them had already made up their minds about me. They'd been fed a version of events that painted me as the villain, the wealthy sister who made a promise and broke it, who chose money over blood. None of them had seen the contract. None of them had thought to ask. I reached for the folder on the passenger seat, felt the weight of it. 4 documents, 11 pages, 1 truth. Then I got out of the car, locked it, and walked up the front steps. Inside, the smell of quiche and fresh coffee. Voices from the dining room. Low, serious, the sound of a family bracing for something. I stepped in. 15 faces turned. Gerald saw me first. His jaw tightened. Donna offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Paige looked at the floor. There was no chair at the table for me. Daniel stood up and pulled one in from the kitchen. Gerald cleared his throat and opened his hands in the practiced manner of a man who assumes every room is his. I want to thank everyone for coming. We're here because of a difficult situation. Nadia made a commitment to help with Paige's wedding. She signed a contract. And now she's refusing to honor it. Aunt Caroline nodded. Uncle Roger crossed his arms. The room had chosen a side before I sat down. Donna dabbed her eyes with a cloth napkin. We didn't want this to become public. We've always handled things privately. But Nadia has left us no choice. Then Paige, voice small and eyes wet. I just wanted my sister at my wedding. I wrote her a personal note. I invited her, and now she's turned everything into a fight about money. Marcus, her husband, sat beside her with his brow creased. He hadn't spoken. He was the only person at the table whose expression I couldn't read. Gerald looked at me from the head of the table, the confident gaze of a man who believes the room belongs to him. Nadia, we're giving you a chance to do the right thing in front of your family. The chorus started on cue. Uncle Roger. Nadia, we've always thought of you as the responsible one. Just do the right thing. Aunt Caroline, your parents could lose their home over this. Is that what you want? Becca, you earn good money. Honestly, it's embarrassing that this is even a conversation. Each voice landed like a stone on a pile. They weren't asking questions. They were delivering verdicts. I let them finish. Every sentence, every rehearsed line, every tear. Through it all, I watched Marcus. He was leaning back slightly, looking from Gerald to Donna to Paige with an expression I recognized. The expression of someone hearing a story for the first time and realizing it doesn't match the one they were told. He leaned toward Paige and said something under his breath, just loud enough for me to catch. What contract? She put a hand on his arm. Shh, I'll explain later. He didn't look away from her. His jaw shifted. Gerald, emboldened by the room's compliance, spread his hands. She can't defend herself. She knows she signed it. Aunt Caroline. Just say yes, Nadia. We can all move forward. I looked at Gerald, held his gaze for 3 full seconds. Then I stood up. The chair scraped the hardwood. The room went silent. "I've been listening," I said. "Now it's my turn." I opened the manila folder and placed the first document in the center of the table. The guarantor agreement. Whitmore Estate letterhead. My name on the signature line. "This is the contract everyone's been talking about," I said. "My name on it." I pointed to the line. "But that is not my signature." I set my passport next to it, opened to the photo page. "This is my real signature. Look at them side by side." Aunt Caroline reached for the contract first, held it up next to the passport, squinted. Uncle Roger leaned in. Becca set down her phone for the first time. The signatures weren't close. Not when you looked. Not when you actually looked. "The Whitmore estate has confirmed they are investigating the forgery," I said. I placed the venue's investigation letter on the table. The suspension of collection. The formal inquiry. Gerald's face had gone the color of wet concrete. That's ridiculous. You signed it electronically. Over the phone. Something. I kept my voice level. "Dad, the venue's event coordinator confirmed that an older gentleman submitted this form in person and signed it at the front desk." The room processed that sentence in real time. I watched it travel across Aunt Caroline's face, across Uncle Roger's, across Marcus's. Gerald's mouth opened. Nothing came out. For the first time in my life, I watched my father have nothing to say. Aunt Caroline spoke first. She set the contract down slowly, the way you set down something hot. "Gerald, is this true? You signed her name." It was for Paige." His voice cracked on the second word. "We had no other option." "You committed forgery," Uncle Roger said, standing from his chair. His face was flushed to the collar. "On your own daughter's name, Gerald. Do you understand that's a felony?" Donna reached for Gerald's arm. "We were desperate. You don't know what it's been like." "Desperate?" Aunt Caroline's voice was a blade. "Donna, I asked you last month to your face whether Nadia had agreed to help. You looked me in the eye and said yes." Donna said nothing. Then Marcus turned to Paige. His voice wasn't loud. It was worse than loud. It was the voice of someone recalibrating everything. "You told me your parents were covering the venue." Paige reached for his hand. "Marcus, sit down." "You knew?" He didn't move. "You knew your father forged your sister's name on a contract and said nothing?" "It was complicated." "It's a crime, Paige." "It's not complicated." The room had split. Gerald and Donna on one side, pinned, exposed. Paige beside them, trying to hold Marcus's hand while he pulled away. And me, standing at the end of the table with an open folder, saying nothing more. The documents were doing exactly what documents do. I raised one hand. The room went quiet. "I'm not done," I said. "I'm not pressing charges." I looked around the table. Aunt Caroline, Uncle Roger, Becca, Daniel, each cousin and neighbor who had come here to watch me fold. I want everyone in this room to understand 3 things. First, I never signed that contract. I have zero legal or moral obligation to pay a single dollar of the $38,000. The venue's investigation will confirm it. Second, I flew 18 hours to be at Paige's wedding. I stood on that gravel drive with an invitation in my hand, and the same man who forged my name turned me away at the door because he was afraid I'd find out. Third, I don't hate anyone in this room, but I will not carry debts that were never mine. And I will not apologize for refusing. Donna's voice came through the tears. "Nadia, please." "Mom," I lowered my hand. "I'm done being the person you call only when you need something signed or paid or blamed." Gerald still hadn't spoken. He was staring at the contract on the table like it was a mirror that showed him something he hadn't prepared to see. I gathered the documents slowly, returned them to the folder, tucked it under my arm. "Kindness is not a contract," I said, "and being family is not a blank check." I walked past the table, past the quiche and the coffee and the silence, past 15 people recalculating everything they'd been told. Daniel met my eyes as I passed. He gave a single nod. I walked out the front door, down the porch steps, into December light. Nobody followed, but this time the silence didn't feel like rejection. It felt like respect. I was halfway to the rental car when I heard Tyler's voice through the open dining room window. Not loud, controlled, but carrying. You lied to me about the money. You lied about your sister. What else, Paige? I didn't stop walking. I got in the car, set the folder on the passenger seat, started the engine. In the rearview mirror, Daniel walked out the front door and came to my window. "That took guts," he said. "You're the one who sent the screenshots." He shoved his hands in his pockets. Uncle Gerald hasn't looked up from the table. Aunt Donna's locked in the bathroom. Paige is trying to hold Marcus's hand, and he keeps moving it. Is he leaving? I don't know. He said he needs space. She mentioned something about the honeymoon. 4 seasons Bali. Yeah. Daniel paused. For what it's worth, most of the room is on your side now. Aunt Caroline told Uncle Gerald he should be ashamed of himself. That's Aunt Caroline. I looked at him. Drive safe, he said. He stepped back. I pulled away from the curb and did not look in the rearview mirror. The highway was empty. The sky was wide and gray and completely indifferent to everything happening underneath it. I drove with the radio off because some silences are earned. At the hotel, I sat in the parking lot with the engine running, the folder on the seat beside me. 11 pages that contained one truth and undid an entire lie. My phone buzzed. Claire. How'd it go? I looked at the folder. I laid it on the table, I said, and let the room do the rest. A pause. Then, and? Gerald looked at the contract like he'd never seen his own handwriting before. Marcus found out Paige knew. Aunt Caroline told my father he should be ashamed of himself. Claire was quiet for a moment. Athena. Yeah. You held. I held. The engine was still running. Through the windshield, the hotel entrance, the automatic doors, the ordinary world going about its December morning without pausing for any of it. My phone buzzed again. A text from a number I didn't recognize at first. Then I placed it. Karen Mitchell, the event coordinator. I probably shouldn't be sending this, but I wanted you to know we submitted the handwriting comparison to our legal team this morning. Their exact words were, "Not even close." I read it twice. Set the phone down on the center console. Not even close. My name, my signature. The only person who gets to write it is me. That's it. That's the whole thing. I put the car in drive. I don't know what happens next with Gerald and Donna. I don't know if Marcus stays. I don't know if Paige says the things she needs to say or keeps the distance that's easier. I don't know if my father looks at himself honestly in the weeks that follow, or whether honesty is something he's capable of at this point, at 62, after a lifetime of deciding what the truth is allowed to be. What I know is this. I laid the documents on the table. I said the true thing clearly in front of the people who needed to hear it. And then I walked out. Not because I was cold, because I was finished. You can only hold a door open for so long before you have to decide whether you're the door or the person walking through it. I drove back toward the hotel with the folder on the seat beside me and the December sky pressing flat above the highway and the radio still off. Now I want to ask you something. Not a hypothetical. A real question. If you were sitting at that table, if you were the one who'd spent 18 hours on a plane and stood on a gravel path with an invitation in your hand, and then spent 2 weeks in a hotel room building a case from a forged signature, what would you have done when you finally had the room's attention? Would you have laid the documents on the table the way I did? Would you have walked out without saying a single word and let the paperwork speak for itself? Or would you have done something I didn't think of? Tell me in the comments. Your answer, in your own words. I read everyone. And if this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear that a forged name is not a debt you owe.